All right, so today we're going to talk about 5 tips on how to sell solar virtually. And a lot of you guys are switching from door to door to online selling, and it might be a struggle for you. And it really is actually more mental than it is your actual salesmanship. And selling virtually is a very common thing. I used to work for a company, Clear Solar, who did probably the majority of their business all virtually. And, I'd see guys close over 100 kilowatts in 1 month just on the phone and on Zoom. So I'm going to go through some best practices, not necessarily the sales presentation, but some of the best practices on how to get the most out of your experience with customers, and that way you have the highest chance of success. So we have tons of other sales trainings and videos. If you want to subscribe to the channel, click the link. Let's get a subscribe going. But let's dive into it. So first one is have the right tools. Now, as you can see, I am not an Apple guy, and the reason being is I have a touch screen. You might have an iPad, but it's hard to go jump around and hop back from proposal to this to that unless you use a proposal tool. So I like to be a drawer. If I'm in person at somebody's home, I have a notepad and paper, and I'm used to being able to draw things and show the customer visually how I'm selling them. And so I want to be able to have tools like a stylus to be able to actually do that in person. So, using things like OneNote or a whiteboard on your computer to be able to draw and say, hey, this is what's going on, as you can see on my screen here. And we'll go through that. So a common thing in solar is you're going to be drawing this graph of like, okay, here's your current utility company. Here's what we're going to do is we're going to finance this thing for 25 years. This all is equity. This all is going to the garbage. All this is savings. You're drawing stuff like this. Then you're drawing net metering and you're like, okay, this is a house with solar, this house doesn't have solar, which one's worth more? Okay, how this works is they have a little meter, it spins backwards and forwards kind of thing. You got the sun hitting. So I'm a very visual person, as you can see on the screen. I'm always drawing. I might be asking them questions. I might be saying like, okay, so what are the things you're mainly looking for out of this appointment? It's like, okay, the first thing is how much is it going to save you? Okay, now customer, what are the things that you already know about solar? Oh, that it's, good on the south facing. And so I'm like writing that down. So I'm actually showing that I'm listening. So the more that you can feel like visually showing your customer what's going on, that you're listening, that you're paying attention, the more that you're going to have your customer engaged in that Zoom conversation. So things like Calendly, things like Zoom or some type of GoToMeeting software, you have some kind of visual drawing. You can do that with a mouse. You can do that with other things. But I love having the stylus because it's a lot quicker, cleaner. I can get sharper lines. And then also just having some kind of texting software like vanillamessage.com. There's other ones out there. Some kind of phone recording thing. So whether you're going to do it all on recording, I would have a way to send that to the customer after you're done with it so that if they want to rewatch that recording, they can. And they're like, oh man, I forgot what he said about this. Is I want to have some kind of recording mechanism, Zoom, and a lot of them actually give you the capability to record it afterward. And then send it to the customer. So those are some just tip number 1, have the right tools. Number 2 is have the mindset that selling is the same on like Zoom as it is in the home. Where a lot of people go wrong is they think that it's a whole different sales process and they try to like mix up and they wig out and they think, oh, well, I can't do those steps because I'm not there in person, or, oh, I can only sell one person at a time because how do you get husband and wife on a Zoom call? So therefore, and they mentally think that there's a difference of closing percentage. They mentally think they wig themselves out more than they need to. So sell the exact same way as if you were in the home. So what I mean by that is don't skip the sales. So don't skip steps in the sales. And DDDU and our solar presentation and a lot of our sales training that we offer, we have, here's the 10 steps to a solar sale. And in other videos, you'll be able to see that or on our university access. But for example, if I'm trying to build pain in the problem in the solar presentation, I'm still going to ask the questions like, so, are you doing this more so for the environment or for the savings? And they're like, oh, for the savings. They're like, okay, what does that mean to you? And what does it look like? And how much money do you spend X amount a year? And if you were to move in 10 years, where else does that money go? And I'm creating the fear of loss, and I'm creating the fear of missing out, and I'm creating the urgency deadlines through, hey, ITC credit's going to go away in X amount of time. And I'm creating utility deadlines, and I'm doing the same stuff I would do as if I was in their home, but I've watched people go try to sell virtually, and it's like they completely changed their sales process. So don't do that. The next thing is decision makers present. Just like as if you have a sale, your likelihood of selling them and closing them on a $30,000 solar system and only one leg is there is really low. So step number 3 is make sure to have the decision makers present. And then the fourth one is the reminders and follow-up. And so this is when you'd use a system like Calendly where they can self-create their own appointment date and time. And then in the paid version of Calendly, you can set up auto reminders to email them saying, hey, your meeting starts in 20 minutes, or it starts in an hour, or it starts in 5 minutes. And you can have these auto reminders, and then you can have some auto follow-up. And so one of the softwares that a lot of people use in solar would be, if you can see on my screen here, is Vanilla Message. And something like this, you can create campaigns. So you go here and you go to you go into like custom message, and you create these templates that say, hey, are you still able to make your meeting at 5? And if they say yes, you're like, great, I'm excited to, chat then, see you here, here's the link. If they say no, you're like, great, here's the Calendly link to reschedule. Click the link and let's get a new date and time that works best for you. If they say maybe, it's like, hey, I'll call you and answer any questions. So you're able to customize this, and we'll call this like as you can see in here, this solar company, Idaho Solar, has created post-sale follow-up, click funnel. They've created different follow-up messages like, a follow-up message. It's like, hey, just wanted to send the message and see if you're still interested in moving forward. If yes, please reply yes, and we can talk more. Awesome. Love to schedule a quick call. If they say no, okay, well, sorry to hear that. Would love to keep us in mind if anything changes. And you're creating this AI texting automation, and if you're smart, you're then just doing this at a fast, rapid pace to go create more time efficiency and more engagement with your customers. And then on here, you're able to just text back and forth. The day of emails is kind of dead. The day of like calling a lot of people, it's kind of inefficient sometimes. People are totally cool with you just texting them, being like, hey, I'm running a little late. Hey, hop on the call. Hey, can I follow up with you? And that was where a system like Vanilla Message would play a big part in that. Now, also the follow-up is, sending them a proposal with the information that you want them to see. Sometimes you give them too much information. So sometimes there's a smart strategic play based on how that first visit went or first meeting went to send them a partial proposal, maybe not divulging all the numbers, but the concept, not the specifics, so that you're teeing yourself up for number 2, meeting number 2, so that they're excited to see what their numbers are, right? So sometimes you strategically may even have the numbers, but you may want to say, hey, these are just vague numbers just as a placeholder. On the next meeting, we might just go over the real numbers so that they're more excited on a 2-touch visit. Sometimes you're going to go for a 1-touch visit. But my recommendation on Zoom, just from studying some of the best at this, is making it a 2-touch visit. Just because a lot of people want to create that relationship with you, and they want to make sure that they can trust that some random dude over the computer isn't trying to scheme them over a $30,000 solar system and what's actually going to happen. That being said, step number 5 is have all the information necessary ready and pulled up. Be prepared for your meeting. Like I have here, I can click through and I have my proposal ready to go. I have my banking and financial, like here's Sunlight Financial Portal, ready to run credit. I have, my follow-up campaign. Everything is like there that I want to show them. I've got their bill pulled up, ready to go. So if I want to analyze their bill with them and show them, hey, as you can see right here in November, you had, this much going on, and in January it was lower, and then look at your July, and you can show them, be like, what the heck? Did you have Christmas lights in November? What'd you do in November to have this pop? As you can see on my screen, I can analyze the bill right there with them, show them all the different charges, show them the different blocks and utility increases. The more they use, the more how they're getting penalized, or whatever the utility company provides. So what I'm going to be doing, as you can see here on my screen, is I can show them, it's like, dude, $870. That's just to run your power. I can have all this, and then I can readily jump right back to the proposal and be like, okay, let me show you here on your proposal, where your panels are going to go, and you can really visualize and let them kind of taste, touch, feel, see everything that you're doing. And then the other thing that a lot of people end up doing wrong on this whole virtual presenting is they do all the talking and they don't listen. It's easier to kind of read body language and see a customer when you're in the home. But on Zoom or virtually, you tend to just automatically go into like vomit on them mode. My recommendation is slow down and map out your questions maybe on a piece of paper on the side. Maybe you have like a notepad. You're writing down questions and you're saying, okay, I need to make sure I ask these 10 questions throughout my presentation to ensure that the customer's engaged and they're not sitting there watching the football game while you're sitting there trying to sell your heart out, and they're just sitting there texting and watching Netflix the whole time. Or you know what I mean? So you want to make sure that you're asking them questions so it forces their attention to stay engaged into what you're doing, because it's easy for them to get distracted and pretend like they're listening to you. So having all the things ready to go. And then the last thing I would do is say, here's the next steps. You never want to leave an appointment, especially a virtual appointment, with not a next step. The next step is I'm going to email you the information. We're going to meet again on Thursday. The next step is you're going to get an email with all these things that we just got completed, and you're going to get a call from our site survey expert. The next step is, like, whatever the next step is for you, make sure that is so clear, and then give a email summary report at the end of that saying, hey, just loved our call, appreciate the time you spent with me. Here's the next steps. In case you have questions, here's my phone number. And you're showing this like sales courtesy to show and walk them through a path to success. So these were my basic tips on how to really run a successful solar virtual training or a virtual presentation. And we have a ton more videos and content on our online university, and we're continue to film and train and capture content with the best of the best. And we realize a lot of people in this time of social distancing and stuff like that, a lot of things are migrating digital, and that's not a bad thing. That's not a bad thing. Sales is sales, psychology is psychology, people are people, buyers are buyers. You can still go out and sling a bunch of deals this way.